How do I help my drug-addicted parent? The first important thing to do is to have communication with them, to open up the lines of communication, to ensure that full disclosure is given, and to find out what's going on in their life. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and asking some questions. I think that showing your concerns hopefully would be enough to prompt them into providing some truthful answers. Please keep in mind, however, that people who have been abusing drugs or alcohol tend to minimize their intake. They minimize the actual problems that are going on, and there's a lot of secret involved with this, and shame as well. So to be understanding and non-judgmental is the approach to take. So to open up lines of communication so they'll provide more helpful information. If they are willing to get help for themselves, then consider going to see your family doctor or a drug treatment counselor, or both. There's also addictionists, there's psychiatrists out there with specialties with addiction, and gain information as far as what are the alternatives, the options available for treatment. Would total abstinence be the approach, or have they been through this before, and would harm reduction be the better alternative? But in the beginning, total abstinence, in my opinion, is the best way to go. It takes time though, so it's not just quitting the drug of choice. It's about unlearning the behaviors associated with the drug use, learning tools to prevent a relapse, and changing things in our lives to make it more manageable and more fulfilling. So these are the things that are learned in rehab, and it can be very helpful, whether it's an inpatient rehab, which is, in my opinion, again, I think it's more helpful than outpatient, because in inpatient rehab, a person has an opportunity to be removed from the pressures of normal life routine and to concentrate on themselves, remove the telephone, remove access to the internet, and it simplifies things, and it gives them a chance to focus on themselves, to learn as well on the history of addiction and tools needed to help have an enduring recovery. Discussion should be put into total abstinence, going to a rehab, versus harm reduction. Both of them can employ getting involved in the community. That's also important, to get out of the isolation that is a big issue associated with addiction itself, is the isolation that goes on, and to get them out of that. Being connected with the community is the way to help solve that, and that's what I mean by connected. It's just whether it's recreation, going to self-help or peer groups, speaking about their problems. This can be done at a 12-step group like AA, NA, Cocaine Anonymous, any of the above. And there's also rational recovery and smart recovery. There's other groups, but the idea is to get them involved in the community. Even doing volunteer work maybe when they're feeling better is also a helpful thing. Other balancing things are to have recreation, to have some entertainment in life, some balance away from all the stress. Because the good part about recovery is learning how to cope with life stresses. That's important. The other thing is to keep in mind that with some drugs, that sudden cessation of use can cause a severe withdrawal syndrome. This is the case with alcohol, with opioids. Some can be quite dangerous, and if a person was to suddenly quit and go through withdrawal like this, they are at a high risk to not only to relapse, but if they do relapse, their tolerance has now been reduced, and if they go back to using like their usual ways and amounts, they're at higher risk of unintentional overdose and death. So it's very important to have this conversation with your loved one, your parent, to learn the facts as far as what sort of withdrawal syndrome is going on, and to prevent it and minimize it as much as possible. Finally, harm reduction is another school of thought, and this says it's usually for people who've already tried rehab and they've been unsuccessful on many attempts, and they're not able to have an enduring recovery. And so this situation says, well, if they're going to use, then let's minimize the harm by moderating their drug use and still attending treatment and getting help for themselves. So to summarize it again, to get treatment for your loved one, your parent, is to open up communication, to not be biased or judging them. There's no room for that right now. You care about them, obviously, and to open up frank communication so they're telling you hopefully everything. The next thing to do is see what they want. Do they want to get help for themselves? Because if they're not willing to do it, it is a very difficult uphill battle to force somebody into treatment. The next thing is to discuss it with a family doctor or a drug treatment counselor, to learn about the withdrawal syndrome, to learn about community services available to get help. And then finally, to consideration of going into rehab. Most effective ones are probably at least 90 days, even 2 years sometimes. There are ones out there that are 30 days. However, just keep in mind that that's very short. It doesn't give enough time to undo the behaviors. So if there's any questions or comments, I would love to hear it. Please provide it in the comment box below. Thank you.
If you or a loved one are looking for help with substance abuse, call our 24/7 helpline at 1-800-615-1067. A caring addiction advisor is awaiting your call.